Hello, witches and wizards. Welcome back to Magic Muggle, a Harry Potter after show. I'm Eric Sequeira, aka Mr. Honest, your resident Ravenclaw, broadcasting from the highest tower in Hogwarts. Today, we're talking about chapters 7 and 8 of Order of the Phoenix, the Ministry of Magic, and the Hearing. I gotta tell you, these chapters made me feel something that Harry Potter doesn't usually make me feel. Frustration. Not at Harry, not at Sirius, not at the Weasleys, but at the Ministry. Because by the end of these chapters, it feels pretty clear that Harry isn't walking into a fair situation. It feels like people have already decided who he is before he even gets a chance to explain himself. And thankfully, somebody shows up to change that. Let's talk about it. The first thing I loved about these chapters is how much support Harry actually has around him. He wakes up ridiculously early because he's nervous about the hearing. And honestly, who wouldn't be? We've all been in that position. Something huge going on that day, waking up early, not being able to fall asleep when sleep matters most. He's sitting there wondering if he's about to lose Hogwarts, which is his home. Wondering if life is about to completely change for him. And I mean, anything can happen at this hearing. So understandably, he's a little bit nervous. And when he goes downstairs, everybody is actually already waiting for him. Mrs. Weasley, Mr. Weasley, Sirius, Lupin, Tonks. Tonks, who I really like. Great addition to the story so far. She's very lighthearted, and her shape-shifting is pretty cool, I gotta say. Nobody says anything over-dramatic to Harry, but you can tell they're worried. They're rooting for him, and they're trying to reassure him. And Mrs. Weasley fussing over his clothes and trying to flatten his hair, it just made me smile. He doesn't really have a mom and never did, and Mrs. Weasley's kind of like his surrogate mom at this point. Harry's not exactly crazy about what she's doing, but that's what people do when they care. Sometimes fixing somebody's shirt is all you can really do for them. I also continue to love Arthur Weasley. Every time this man appears on the page, he makes me smile. There's a kind of quiet innocence to him in looking at all the Muggle artifacts and how fascinated he is. He's taking Harry to what is basically a magical court hearing, and he's still fascinated by Muggle technology. Love the guy. The ticket machines, the turnstiles, the subway. Everything is amazing to him. And I don't know why, but after all these books, it still works. Arthur never feels annoying. He just feels genuine. Then we finally get our first real look at the Ministry of Magic, and I loved this entire sequence. The telephone booth entrance is fantastic. Dialing the secret number and getting that visitor badge. The booth sinking underground is exactly the kind of weird, magical idea that makes the wizarding world feel really special. And then Harry arrives at the Ministry itself. The giant fountain, the fireplaces, the endless workers heading into their jobs, the elevators, the departments. I found myself getting completely distracted from the hearing just because I wanted to explore the place for myself. The wizarding world isn't so small. There's a broad amount of wizards that work out of the Ministry itself. It makes you wonder how much of the population is magical. Enough for it to have to be secret, I suppose. It's one of the moments where the wizarding world suddenly feels just much bigger than Hogwarts in general. One detail I really liked was Arthur showing Harry around. Because Arthur is proud of where he works, even if nobody else seems to be. And that becomes especially clear when we reach his office. Because, well, Arthur's office is basically a broom closet. This guy is one of the nicest, smartest, most hardworking people we've met. And he's shoved into a tiny little room surrounded by filing cabinets. It actually made me feel a bit bad for him. Then we hit the moment where everything starts feeling wrong. The hearing has been changed. The time has been changed. The location has been changed. Nobody bothered to properly tell Harry, and nobody bothered to properly tell Arthur. And suddenly they're late. The moment that really got me is when Harry finally reaches the courtroom and immediately gets hit with the "you're late." And I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, he's late, but your side changed everything. That was the first moment where I started getting genuinely annoyed with the Ministry. Because it feels like less of a hearing and more of a setup, I guess. Then Harry walks into the courtroom, and immediately things get darker. This isn't some small office hearing like Arthur described. This is a courtroom, a serious courtroom. The same courtroom we saw in the previous book through Dumbledore's pensieve. The same place where Death Eaters were sentenced. The chains on the chair, the rows of judges, the atmosphere. Everything about it is designed to make Harry feel small. And honestly, it worked on me too. Then we got Percy. And man, that was rough. He didn't even acknowledge Harry. Not a nod, not a hello, nothing. Considering everything Harry's been through with the Weasley family, that silence says a lot. But then comes one of my favorite moments in the book so far. Dumbledore arrives. And the thing I love isn't that he shows up, it's how he shows up. Completely calm, completely collected, almost like he's already 3 steps ahead of everybody. Meanwhile, Fudge is scrambling, the courtroom is tense, Harry is nervous, and Dumbledore just walks in like the only adult in the room. The second he appeared, I felt better. And I think Harry did too. It's one of those moments where you remembered how much confidence Dumbledore inspires. Dumbledore not saying a word to Harry or actually like saying hi or acknowledging him, it feels a little bit strong, but I'm guessing that Dumbledore does that probably not to seem like they're not buddy-buddy at all. They don't want anyone to get the wrong idea that Dumbledore will say anything to get Harry out of trouble despite what Harry did. It's more that here he has to be very, I mean, in a sense, performative, but professional in his own right to not make it seem like he's got that he's giving special treatment to Harry. I think he does a good job of that. And Harry, I wonder if he misinterprets it. However, I don't think he will because we haven't really seen Harry's reaction to the end of this. The chapter ends when he leaves, Dumbledore leaves. So I wonder what Harry's immediate reaction to how Dumbledore acted is. I mean, he saved his butt, so I'm assuming that probably he's grateful. I also really liked Amelia Bones because before this chapter, I expected everybody in that room to be against Harry. But she actually listens. She questions. She seems interested in the actual facts. And I loved her reaction to Harry producing the Patronus. For a brief moment, she sounds so genuinely impressed. Which she should be. Harry is 15 years old, and that's pretty incredible. This has, been explained. The Patronus charm is a very advanced magic trick. No one has ever called it anything a magic trick. It's very advanced magic. And Harry being able to do it like that just shows the power Harry has as a wizard. And in one way, it shows he's smart, but in another way, it could be interpreted that he's dangerous. Then Harry finally explains what actually happened. Dementors. And this is where my frustration with the Ministry really kicked in. Because Fudge doesn't seem interested in investigating what happened. He seems interested in dismissing it. Harry barely gets a sentence out before he's interrupted. Every answer gets challenged. Every explanation gets doubted. And that's where I started getting flashbacks to high school. Not because I think my life was exactly like Harry's, but because I think most people know what it feels like when somebody has already decided you're wrong before they hear your side. That's what this hearing feels like. And then we get one of the biggest surprises of the chapter. Mrs. Fig, the weird cat lady from Privet Drive, she suddenly is a witness. And honestly, I loved it. I love when small characters become important later. It's like the seeds were planted. They were always meant to come out at this point in the story. It makes the whole world feel super connected. Like these people have been there all along for this one reason. Or maybe more reasons to come. Who knows? And then we meet Dolores Umbridge. Now, I've seen the movies, so the second her name appeared, I already knew trouble had arrived. But even putting that aside, Rowling does such a good job introducing her. She barely says anything. Yet immediately, I don't trust her. Everything sounds fake, everything sounds rehearsed, and everything sounds exactly designed to make somebody else look foolish. She doesn't have to do much. You can already feel the exactly kind of person she is. And I remember very quickly why so many Harry Potter fans can't stand her. The real star of this chapter, though, is Dumbledore, because he absolutely dismantles the Ministry's case. And it's not by yelling or showing off, not by intimidating anybody. He just calmly points out facts. Every time Fudge tries to shift the conversation, Dumbledore brings it back. Every time somebody tries to ignore the evidence, Dumbledore reminds them of the law. And little by little, you can feel the Ministry losing control of this situation. They lose the room. It's honestly one of the coolest Dumbledore moments we've gotten so far. What stood out to me most is that this hearing was never really about underage magic. At least that's how it felt. The Ministry seems terrified. Terrified that Harry might be telling the truth. Terrified that Dumbledore might be telling the truth. Terrified of what it means if Voldemort is really back. And when people are afraid, this is completely real life. Sometimes they just start looking for easier targets. And Harry feels like that target. Thankfully, by the end of the chapter, Harry is cleared. And honestly, I felt relieved. Not because I thought the story was ending, but because the whole situation just felt so unfair from the beginning. The changed hearing, the changed location, the interruptions, the assumptions, the accusations. We meet Fudge in chapter 3, and it's right after Harry blew up Aunt Marge, and Fudge is just like, we don't take away wizards from Hogwarts just for blowing up their aunt. Like, he's so nonchalant about it, but like, I swear that's even brought up as a list of like one of the many things Harry did that is fishy and thinking he has bad motives and he's a bad egg. But Fudge is kind of wearing a couple of different masks throughout the series, which I find interesting. This felt like Harry walked into a room where people had already made up their minds. And thanks to Dumbledore, they were forced to actually listen. Overall, I really enjoyed these chapters, not because they're action-packed or full of big reveals, but because they show a different kind of conflict. Not Harry versus a monster, not Harry versus Voldemort, but Harry versus an institution that doesn't want to hear the truth. And judging by the introduction of Dolores Umbridge, I have a feeling that battle is only just beginning. Thank you all so much for listening to Magic Muggle. I appreciate you being here. Please rate the show, give it 5 stars, thumbs up, write a review. It goes the longest way. I know you listeners are out there. I want to get more of you in the club. Join our Discord. It's in the description of this episode. We have a combined Discord for Marvel Maniac and MCU After Show, my other podcast, and just pretty much everything Honest First, which is what the server is called, Honest First. You are completely welcome. Don't hesitate. Join us, and let's talk Harry Potter or anything else you might just want to lay some thoughts down on. I also challenge you, if you know any fan of Harry Potter that loves the series, send them a link to the show. Whatever episode you think would just draw them in. It would honestly go a long way if each of you could do that. I'm not trying to ask too much. I'm just trying to get it out there, word of mouth, because we're really getting to the good stuff here, and it'll be great to have a little bit more of the fan base kind of listening in as we go. But either way, we're still going through it. We're not stopping anytime soon. We're going to the end and to the new HBO series, which I hope to God doesn't flop. This has been Eric Sequeira, aka Mr. Honest, and until next time, keep your wands ready, keep your flu powder handy, and remember, the truth doesn't stop being true just because powerful people don't want to hear it. Wands down, hearts full.